The Retirement Cafe podcast, the power of stories to teach children about money, with Will Rainey. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast with me, your host, Justin King. If you're thinking about your retirement or already retired, you're in the right place. My aim is to help you plan for and live a successful and meaningful retirement. Retirement is far more than just a financial event. It's a significant life event, a major transition, which will bring with it new challenges and opportunities. So each episode contains tips, information, and inspiration to help you feel more informed and confident about your retirement. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode. Before we get into it in detail, I wanted to thank Kevin Webber for giving the podcast a 5-star review. You can find a link to my fascinating conversation with Kevin, as known as Dead Man Running, on the show notes for today's episode. So let's get back to today's guest, and I'm really pleased to share with you a conversation I had with the founder of Bluetree Savings, Will Rainey, all the way from Vietnam. Will has been living in Vietnam with his young family since 2019 after making the life-changing decision to quit corporate life. The move was made possible by his lifelong habit of saving and investing, which gave him an idea for a new business. Having been an investment consultant and an actuary, Will now focuses his attention on helping parents and grandparents to teach their children and grandchildren about money. Will now focus his attention on helping parents and grandparents to teach their children and grandchildren about money through his business Bluetree Savings and his recently published book. In our conversation, we chat about the work of Bluetree Savings, Will's book Grandpa's Fortune Fables, and the power of stories to engage and educate young minds. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Will. Welcome to the Retirement Cafe podcast, Will Rainey.
Well, thank you for having me. Nice to be on the show.
Yeah, really good. Really looking forward to our chat. For those who don't know you, Will, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm an actuary for my sins. For those who might not know what an actuary is, it's essentially someone who's like an accountant but loves statistics. So does lots of financial statistics about pensions and insurance and investments as well. So I did that in the UK. And then I worked for a large consultancy firm helping different retirement schemes. And then in 2014, I got a job opportunity to work in Hong Kong.
Wow.
And so doing a similar kind of role, working with insurance companies and retirement schemes, sovereign wealth funds all around Asia, which was amazing. But then in 2019, my wife and I did a bit of a life change, and we kind of left our full-time jobs in Hong Kong and moved the family to Vietnam, where I'm speaking to you now. So I'm looking out at rice paddy fields and water buffalo.
Amazing.
And had decided to start something a bit new and sort of focus on helping parents teach their kids about money.
Wow. What a story. I'm afraid I do want you to turn the camera around and I want to see the buffalo and the rice paddy fields, but I don't know whether you can do that. So.
I can try this. I'll try that.
Not to say that look at this. It really is true. Amazing.
Yeah. See a little bit about the background there.
Fantastic. So, well, that's a hell of a story. So, tell me a little bit about life in Vietnam.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's so different from the big cities of London and Hong Kong, where there's just so much abundance of everything, and everything costs a lot of money. Whereas here, we don't have a car. We have little scooters that we go around town on. We integrate so much with the Vietnamese people, so it's not like we're in like a commune of just expats. Our neighbours are Vietnamese, and we're looking at them doing some sort of farming right now, as I think they're growing peanuts. And so, it's just so relaxed, and everyone's just kind of really helpful and kind. And we're looking out, and I've got the sea not very far away. And so, no, it's just so different. But the people here are just so friendly, so kind,
amazing.
So helpful. Amazing.
So, so you obviously left the actuarial world behind, but you're on a bit of a mission in a couple of other areas. So tell me about Bluetree Savings.
Yeah, so Bluetree Savings is all about helping parents teach their kids about money. So it does some, we'll talk about later about a book which helps children directly learn about money. But my main prerogative was to give parents the resources to learn about money themselves, in such a simple way that they could teach their kids. So I'm hoping to teach both parents and children about money through this way, because there's just not many resources out there that help parents. And I think that I was very, very fortunate. I learned a lot from my parents, and the opportunity to be able to leave full-time work and have this opportunity to spend time with my young kids and move to a different part of the world is because I've been able to, my wife and I have been saving and investing for many years. And so we have that financial security to be able to have this opportunity. And I want this for my children. So I thought, all right, I'm going to start doing that for my children. And so Bluetree Savings started out of that, writing blogs, speaking at companies to help people learn about money in the most simplest of terms, because clearly the lowest common denominator is young children who've never been taught anything. But in the same case, most of the parents haven't either. No.
I mean, it's kind of a dark art, isn't it? Unless you've been involved in that world. I was relating a story on a talk that I was doing locally in Bournemouth to a group of solicitors the other week, and I was explaining how I've obviously had the benefit of understanding how investment markets work and what have you, and we've got two children who are 10 and 12, two girls, Kathy and I, and their grandparents from Kathy's side decided when they were born that they would like to give a little bit of money each month. £500, I think, which was very generous right at the beginning when they were both born, and then a small amount every month thereafter. And of course, as you can imagine, I popped off to the local kind of investment fund the equity investment fund invested in the well-run companies of the world, and started contributing this amount of money into their little fund. And the same thing happened for the same generous gift was also given to Kathy's sister, who was going through kind of a difficult time when the children were early days, and she opened a building society account for them, and started depositing that money in there thereafter. And then, her sister had a kind of a more challenging relationship, and that sadly fell apart, and life's been pretty tough and pretty difficult for her, and she's beautifully come out the other side of all that, and the kids are great and everything's fantastic. But actually, if you look at it economically, the building society account that she's religiously saved well in for her three kids, and will provide a really nice lump sum for them. Our two have significantly benefited from that money going into an investment account rather than a building society account. And it's kind of it feels slightly unfair. The one child should benefit from the other through no skill of their own, but just because, in essence, one parent had a little bit of knowledge and thought that was the right thing, and the other didn't.
Yeah, no, it's so important, and it's not just the knowledge; it's the action that you took to put that money there. Because, and I think that's because when I first started, so I had when I was doing the actuarial side, I was doing investments, so I had a good knowledge on that. And so when I first started Bluetree, it was all going to be about getting parents to save, just because that same notion there, you just give them such an advantage, sort of from birth, 18 years of compound interest before they even start is a huge advantage. But then the more I kind of did with research and talking to parents, etc., a lot of it is there is about that knowledge, but there's just so much in terms of behaviors and habits to start that off. Because as you say, especially coming from where we both come from in terms of this financial bits, I know a lot of people who have all the knowledge as you do about investing, but still don't, not for themselves, not for their families. So it's that, not just the knowledge, it's the knowledge and the action. And that's why I've been so passionate about when been doing this Bluetree stuff is trying to get parents to not just read and learn, but take action. And that can be just the starting to save, because again, that's a very, very big positive but also right now do something even more and start setting up that investment account and getting that compound interest working. And and it just makes such a difference. And once the kids kind of learn and see that through your daughters will see that compound interest. So when they get to 18, they know it works. And then they'll want to hopefully continue doing that with their own money thereafter.
Yes, absolutely. And I
so slowly and boring that most people go, I can't be bothered with this. But once you kind of see it, you're like, oh, I'm hooked now. I want more.
Yes. And I often explain it, we're invested in the well-run companies of the world. We've got a little bit of Apple and they get quite excited by that. We've got a little bit of Amazon. They get excited by that. We've got a little bit of everyone, to be honest. But it's just quite nice to go, you own a little bit of that company, So this key thing here. So we've got the knowledge aspect, but you hit the kind of nail on the head of how are you encouraging people to take action?
Yeah, so this is something I've been really passionate. So because before when I was looking at this topic, I was like, oh, do I go into schools? And I thought there's some really good charities already doing that. So you've got My Bank and Red Start and Young Money. And that's all about knowledge. And you're hoping that if people are knowledgeable, they'll take an action. I know something, therefore. But we kind of know that doesn't always work. If we look at good eating, we all know unhealthy foods, but we still eat them and we still drink alcohol. And some people smoke, even though they know all the bad stuff. So what I've been doing is trying to help parents understand that actions are just so, so important. And so whenever their child, so the kind of first thing I get all parents to do is to say, whenever your child gets some money, no matter how small, get them to save just a little bit. It doesn't. And even if it's like they get £2, get them to save 20p, put it away and keep doing that so that when their children grow up, they just do it out of habit. And it's all about these habits. And so that's my first thing. And it's all about that action. And it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be consistent. And the younger you start doing that, the more and more likely your child is going to grow up financially healthy and wealthy. And all parents can do that. And it's not like, oh, you have to be good with numbers. You have to have lots of money. You have to be well educated. No. You can, every single parent can get their child, whenever they get some money from Tooth Fairy, Christmas, birthday, just get them to save that little bit. And it's that action that is so, so much more important than 4 textbooks worth of knowledge, but no action there.
So if people listening to this, what is the next step that you'd like them to take?
Yeah. So what I do with parents is I try and get them to think of money being like a seed. And say, so when children think of that, they straight away, they can kind of get that you can give seeds away and that's like spending. But the other side of it is that they can go, well, what does it mean when I plant those seeds? And that's just like savings. You're teaching them savings. But then it's the case of, right, when you plant them, you want them to grow into trees. So for my children, we call them blue trees, and hence the company's called Bluetree Savings.
Yes.
And it's all about growing this kind of what I call a financial forest or fortune forest and having this kind of mental image. And this is leads to kind of how do you grow that forest? And you kind of go through these kind of 3 rules, which I go with parents. The first one is whenever your children get money or seeds, make sure they save 1 out of every 10, which is we talked about. The second is to help them grow. And then it comes to what does that mean? And that's helping children learn about that money can grow. And that's about investing. And then with my daughters, I did exactly what you did and said, I think we were in McDonald's in Hong Kong. And I said, because we invest in lots of companies, you own a piece of this McDonald's. All those people over there queuing up are going to get a little bit poorer because they're going to hand over their money. McDonald's is going to get richer and you own a piece of McDonald's. So that money ultimately is a little bit of yours. And they got, like yours, so excited about it. But they also understood how money can grow because it goes from those people goes to McDonald's. McDonald's is owned by people. Those people are investors and those people are getting richer. And so they could see how that growth story works. But the last one, and the next step for parents is about patience. I think it's so underrated or talked about. But essentially, if you want your children to be financially healthy and wealthy, they have to be patient. We know that it takes time for compound interest to work. We know that if you're not patient, you can get targeted by scams and debt and gambling. And so helping your children understand that when they plant the seed, they're not going to wake up tomorrow and there's going to be this big tree sitting in the garden. They know that it takes time. And that's exactly what we want with children when they're thinking about money, and help parents when they're helping their children, is to help their kids understand that it takes time. But if you do, then you're going to have this forest, and it's this forest that no one gets to see. So you can't go out and just because someone's got a big flashy house or a big flashy car doesn't mean they've got a big forest. Most of the time, those people don't have a forest at all. But that should be their goal. So the next step is save, invest, and then be patient.
Brilliant. Wise words. So you've put all this down in a book. Well, you've all this kind of wisdom into a book aimed at children, with a number of kind of fables. Tell me more about, Grandpa's Fortune Fables, in fact. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, sure. So it all started. So I've been writing blogs every week for the last 2 years, and they cover just a different topic to help parents teach their kids about money. And sometimes I use analogies, sometimes I use little games to say, like, this is how you learn it, and this is how you can talk to your kids. And in some of that, I had a number of stories. And so I had a collection of these different stories, which weren't all linked to start with. But I thought, and there was a kind of a request for parents to say, can we put them into a book? And so that's exactly what I did. I put these little mini stories, which cover different topics, into a book, changed them around so they all had the same characters and just kind of themes. But the whole book is kind of based on this young girl who's the granddaughter of a very wealthy man, her grandfather. And so she meets this new friend and kind of goes through how her grandpa became really wealthy by these kind of stories of him going to a faraway island and kind of using that seed analogy, kind of had nothing to start with, but learned how to look after and grew this forest, and how she's kind of using that to build her own wealth. And so children can kind of follow the actions that this little girl has taken based on the kind of advice of her grandpa. But it covers like lots of different topics. So it starts off with the difference between rich and wealthy, which I think is just so important. It talks about earning money. It talks about investing money and those 3 rules that I mentioned earlier. It also covers topics like tax and charity, all using stories, or fables, as I call them in here, which hopefully a bit like Aesop's fables, where even if children might not always instantly connect, like the boy who cried wolf to the moral, they'll remember the story, and then over time they'll kind of put the 2 together. And that's what I hope with this book. Yeah. So it's kind of aimed at sort of 7 to 13 to read on their own, but it's kind of written that lots of parents can read it with their younger children. And I really encourage that they do so, because the stories in here, many parents probably will learn something from, is the aim.
Absolutely. And I think, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because money can be treated as or wealth can be treated as a kind of a dirty word nowadays. But actually, we all know that the financial resources, if a youngster has got financial resources as they enter into the world, it just supports them, doesn't it? It supports them whether it's education, and I read about it, what's going on in America, and the amount of debt that students have. I mean, it kind of is not as bad in the UK, but it's a similar story. The cost of getting onto the housing ladder in any country nowadays is significant. These are big challenges, aren't they, faced as soon as you actually just enter into what I suppose maybe the real world, out of the cossedness of your family, and you're suddenly fending for yourself. So therefore, if you've had some gift of financial resources to allow you to move into the world with a little bit more ease, it can give you a significant leg up, can't it?
Yes. One caveat to that, though, is it has to, those resources plus the education together. And I think that's the big piece, because throughout my experience over the last 2 years of talking to different families, one of the biggest fears that they have is that they've been saving for their child or their grandchild, and they're going to hand this over at 18 or whatever age, and then they fear that their child is going to go and spend it. So there's one where it's a grandmother, and she handed over, and then the next day the grandson spent it all on gold teeth. And you can imagine her horror. That's not exactly what she wanted that money for. So, but yeah, no, if children can get that education about how to look after money and get some financial resources from parents or grandparents or wider family, it's just such an advantage. Because the saddest thing is you have these children who have the biggest advantage in all of finance, which is time. But yet most of that is eradicated by huge debts when they're 18 or 21, and that kind of loses all that superpower. But so the more that they have those resources and that knowledge gives them such a head start, and they can really take advantage of that superpower of being young and having a huge time frame for compound interest. So absolutely.
Well, this definitely sounds like this could be a book for people's gifts this maybe Christmas time. I'm not sure when this is coming out yet, so we may have missed that, but definitely birthdays, and definitely for parents and children to read. I think I read that someone had given 21 gifts out as a birthday party presents.
Yeah, so that was fantastic. Yeah, someone said that they just hated the gift bags with all the sweets and the cheap stationery and the little yo-yos. And they bought 15 books for the kids as a kind of replacement for party bags, which is fantastic.
Amazing.
I've heard others saying that they're going to do the same, which is amazing, because I do believe that it's a fun book. So it's Brilliant. Not like it's a textbook and you're like, oh god. No. It's a fun book, and it can make a real big impact and get the sort of conversation started in the home. So yeah, good for the parents and good.
No, I love it. I mean, I have dug into it, and I've read a couple, and I think it's a fantastic. So Grandpa's Fortune Fables, maybe it's on your gift list for 2022. Where can people find more about you, and where they can buy the book? Will?
Yeah, so my website is at bluetreesavings.com. So you can find all about the book there. It's sold on Amazon. So you can buy it in paperback, hardback, or ebook. Most people are kind of going, because it's a kid's book, going for a physical copy rather than the digital copy. But yeah, if people are thinking about multiple copies, whether for clients or for colleagues or friends, then yeah, come to the website and you can get a discount on bulk orders, which has been fantastic in terms of the number of people who have been doing that for their schools, etc. as well.
Yeah, love it. Well, I think you're on a great mission, Will. I really all power to you, because I think it's a great message that you're trying to get out there, and could really enhance the future generations' lives. So all power to you for that, and thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you so much for having me on the show and supporting this very important topic.
Brilliant. Thanks, Will.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks once again to Will Rainey for sharing his story and the work that he is doing. To find out more about Bluetree Savings and Will's book, head over to the show notes page on our website at theretirementcafe.co.uk, where you'll find some useful links. Remember that if you prefer to watch my conversations, you'll find them on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. That's Justin King MFP, along with a whole series of other videos to help you plan for and live a successful retirement. And as always, if you found this podcast helpful, please share with a friend or write a review to help more people like you find us. So until next time, I'm Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.